wasn't expecting quite so much metal on this system, so we're just going to see docks from the word go, I suspect, here. Although, having said that, you can always just go vehicles from the word go, and you'll start to overrun those docks if you can get those vehicles out fast enough, but that all depends on whether you spawn together or apart, and whether you can use your combined build power of your commanders.
We do have 676 metal on this planet, so an absolute abundance. Really going to be all about what you go for, because there's certainly going to be no limit on metal, and there's going to be a huge bottleneck on power, particularly early game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
A couple of pings going out there. Let's take a little look at them. I think they're pinging on the circle where exactly they're going to spawn in it. You don't want to spawn right next to each other. You want to split up a little bit within your spawning circle.
Does
Those
look as
pings
though,
are coming out.
Yeah, PAGods spawning apart, perhaps, or well, two look to perhaps be spawning together, unless that was a corrective ping.
Spawn in. And it's nice to see a big metal planet as well. Definitely something we don't see too often.
Yeah.
A couple more features than you perhaps normally see. Good luck coming out from the players, and then we're going to spawn in now. Hello and welcome everybody, I'm ZaphodX, and we are here for Clanwars Season 4 as we see Voices of War face off against the PAGods. I'm joined here by Marshall.
Hello there, folks.
And it looks like we have, interestingly, both the PAG teams have only spawned in 2 different locations, whereas Voices of War have spawned in 3 different locations. Leaves them a little bit more isolated, however they are going to cover a lot more ground. I'm not sure whether it's entirely necessary with the sheer amount of metal, but it is nice to be able to spawn apart. They will be able to cover a little bit more ground.
Yeah, well, and of course, if you have got that spawn apart, then you can sort of attack from lots of different directions earlier on. And I think that's sort of what they were banking on a little bit more there. However, having said that, with the PAGods double spawn there and the equator, they've effectively negated that advantage by effectively spawning in the middle of so many choke points there.
Yeah, it's a little bit unpleasant being in the middle here. There's not too much space, and there's so many different little routes to come in at your base. Whereas if you're in the northern hemisphere, you've kind of got a wall at your back that you can hold on to much easier.
Yeah, definitely.
So a big abundance of different choices going on. We see a lot of bots going on from the equator for Team PAG, whereas at the South Pole we have an air factory and going for some more tanks there. Looking over at the orange team, Voices of War, radars going up at the south side there, bots going on for the southern player, more bots going on for the northern player, and the 2 players that have spawned together also going bots. We're going very heavy on the docks here, and that's going to be very useful for very fast hit and run raiding.
It will indeed, and it's going to mean that, well, I was about to say it's going to mean that they're going to be able to raid expansions, though most of the expansions are going to be done in the middle of the base because of how densely packed the metal is, and I think that's what the design of this system is, so that PAG don't really need to bother expanding too much, and they can just get so many factories right off the get-go and just expand it within the safety of their own perimeter.
Yeah, I wonder how much the players know about the spawn points here. We do see the first bit of scouting as Team Blue PAG does see the first orange player there at the South Pole. It does have a little bit of intel that they are going for bots.
It does still interest me that everyone goes for docks off the word go in a situation like this, especially given the scouting that's occurred. You can always rush boombots with the production these players have and just absolutely snipe the commanders outright in the first 5 minutes.
Radar there from PAG, and they ping a location of some docks that are moving southwards from the 2 commanders that spawn together. Definitely some useful intel to be having, and tanks are going to come up to meet them. The thing is, as soon as the docks see them, as long as you're watching, you're just going to be able to go straight around them and keep up the harassment. Very, very difficult early game to defend against this. Let's see this first confrontation as they walk across. Tanks fire off a couple of shells, and the docks just run straight to their death there. And you see one tank go down, but all of the docks go down. So unfortunately, Voices of War were not paying attention there and lose a little bit in that initial skirmish.
Yeah, on the other side of the South Pole, though, there's another stream of docks moving in with a little bit of bomber support as well there, taking out a couple of mechs, and they'll be able to move in because there really aren't all that many defences, and the reinforcements keep coming in from blue. Massive unit count disparity there in that attack and defence force, and the radar's going to go down as well, which means that the intel advantage there from that southern spawn is gone. Plus, PAG have done a really good job of putting up radars around the trench, so they've got effectively complete vision of the planet there, and they are fine for energy as well, so they're just going to keep piling on the pressure here.
Yeah, it really is all action now as we see Voices of War beginning to focus in on the middle players and coming in from all directions now. But great work on the southern orange player, currently a little bit outnumbered. The bots just skimming around the outside, destroying everything, completely preventing them from expanding anywhere right now.
Yeah, on the middle there, group of docks did get a little bit close to the commander. They didn't manage to get any shots on him. They did decide to retreat, unfortunately. Probably going to go and take out that fabricator there that they did manage to do.
Interesting moves. We actually see PAG had managed to try and build a radar in the middle of the thing underneath the
trench.
I can't even talk. The trench. Well done. Thank you.
I mentioned that earlier as well. So they're going to have the complete intel around the planet because of the way they've spaced them out as well. So they're going to see
really nice idea. Really nice idea putting them there. So the southern orange player is going to be in a little bit of trouble. Hopefully he can get back on his feet. The other players are going to have to get up their eco to account for this.
They are indeed, though. Having a look at some of the spawns, though, the factory counts are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, even though PAG is keeping ahead in the factory count, they're 32 to 27. The northern Voices of War spawn there, so many air factories. I'm sensing a potential for a strategy swatch to a bomber snipe because there's not too much AA going around for PAG at this point.
And the docks are not too good at anti-air. T1 bomber is going to be very, very good, but still pretty even between the teams in terms of number of factories and number of units on the field, and still putting pressure on with little bits of raiding. PAG now focusing in on this player to the north-hand side, and they're building so many air factories. They're going to have a less ground units, so they're going to need to definitely use the bombers to thin out the forces, but a couple of bombs just in the right place can really make them pay for themselves very, very quickly.
A bit of air support coming in though from PAG, manages to take out that bomber, but a number are being built again. A few bombers coming in from PAG now, so they're going to be able to take out the mechs and a few of the defensive forces, especially if the interceptors are goaded away. Unfortunately the bumblebees went in first, so they were taken down, so that threat was neutralised, but you do now have these really large groups of docks sort of converging from PAG on that base.
Yeah, at the northern side they see a little ping coming out from PAG. They notice the walls and the turret there have managed to destroy a lot of tanks with almost minimal losses. A really nice placement on that choke point there.
Yeah, it is. However, looking in the southern PAG spawn as well, they're stocking up on the air units there. I'm sensing a snipe of their own if they can't... well, they'll probably keep up the harass with the docks and the tanks, and then come in for the snipe once they've forced Voices of War to respond to the ground threat rather than the air threat. Yeah,
they have a decent weight of bombers, moving those northwards a little bit now. And at the moment, PAG just seems to be really dictating the pace of this game. Voices of War, however, leading 575 to 510 medal at the moment, so slight lead in terms of medal, but with the amount of medal that's around, it doesn't make a huge difference.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, you can expand continually, of course, but if you can't keep up your factory production to make use of all those resources, there really isn't any point in using your attention and clicks to bother doing that when you really need to be sort of microing units around the place.
There's a little battalion there of tanks from PAG, and it just got dominated by those bombers. So now the bombers going to move northwards against this big stream of docks that are coming in and raiding all these mechs, and actually going to even up the stakes and put PAG in front. But down come those bombs, and we're going to see huge swathes of those docks go down very, very quickly. A huge group there just gets absolutely slashed to a quarter of the size, and then finally gotten rid of. Maybe need to see some ground anti-air in the mix, might help a little bit.
Yeah, we'll definitely start to see some spinners coming out from the PAG players, and in fact if you look on the southern spawn there, that's a lot coming out, so that's going to negate that bomber harass and defense advantage, although we do see advanced bots going up from the Voices of War player in the northwestern spawn there. I find this interesting, especially considering there's something of the back foot at the moment.
But I think they managed to defend pretty well against that aggression that was looking a little bit nasty for them. Their bombers have been doing great work, and they've also got a decent force of units. Very large group of docks actually moving in from Voices of War now, and this is something I think PAG really has to deal with, because they're going to move in and going to start taking out radars as well, which makes things a little bit more difficult. There's not enough docks here to really stop them. I don't see any bombers from PAG either to deal with this immediately.
Yeah, all the bombers are gathering on the southern hemisphere. They're moving in now in a couple of formations there. So we got 25 moving in, and not too much AA though. There's no interceptors there with them. So although if they can keep the formation and drop the bombs while in formation, oh the docks!
Wow. They do lose all of their bombers though, so that was barely a favourable confrontation, to be honest.
Yeah, that is true. Though they do still have the formation there. They have quite a few interceptors though on the other side of the map at the moment, and that's really going to put a lot of pressure on Voices of War to keep up their interceptor to bomber ratio in a way that's favourable for PAG while they continue to build up with their tanks. Because of course, the more tanks you have in your bot mix, the longer it takes to destroy them all. And the confrontation that's about to occur on the western front here, we've got a lot of spinners, a lot of vehicles there coming in as well against what is predominantly a bot army. So if PAG can just keep their eyes on that, they'll easily overcome that confrontation.
Yeah, you can see them microing just to keep at range, and now moving in because they know they have enough forces, and can now start pushing pretty heavily against this. As long as they avoid those turrets and walls, perhaps going around the other alternate routes, they'll be okay. But either way, preventing Voice of War from expanding, and currently PAG lead 900 medal to 730, so a nice little advantage in terms of medal right now. And if they can keep putting up the factories, currently they lead, oh wow, Voice of War actually leads 63 factories to 60, so a very slight lead there.
Yeah, only slight, but of course with the size of the planet and the resources as well, it's pretty much even Stevens at the moment. The only difference is the amount of map covered there. Commander coming under attack there. Bomber snipe attempted right in the middle there, falling down to about 60-50% of his health, falling below, in fact, to 42, and even further as more bombers get in.
And the docks are actually going to chase this commander down. There's not many units to protect this commander. He needs to get off some good Uber cannons to make sure he protects against this. There goes one Uber cannon, very nicely placed, gets rid of a lot of those docks, but falling to 25% here. Tanks are coming in to support him though, and these docks don't seem to be moving any further in, so he'd probably just about get out here. But
few more bombers coming in. Few more bombers coming in. They are only streaming in though, but they will drop their payloads now below 25%, about 20% there. So that's going to be a prime target for Voices of War in the coming moments. And another wave of bombers coming in. Unfortunately, they will get taken down by the Commander AA and the Spinners, who have just managed to get to that commander in the nick of time. Wow, that was close.
That was a bit lucky for them. Raiding going on all over the place with little groups of units that have managed to sneak through. And bombers actually coming in at that commander now. It looks like there's just about enough to take him very, very low indeed now, and he is going to go down. So that's one commander down now and 3 remaining for PAG. Not a huge loss in the grand scheme of things, but definitely something to be aware of. Once you start losing commanders, you get closer and closer to actually losing the game.
Yeah, I mean, PAG have still got a positive economy. They're 100% efficiency, but the thing with those bombers, that bomber snipe, it lost all of the bombers that were there in this snipe attempt, be it the commander explosion or the spinners. Now, if you look around, there's a massive horde of interceptors in the northern hemisphere there from PAG, and you know, Voices of War really do not have the anti-air capability to combat that. So PAG now, as long as they can keep those focused around the commanders, they'll be able to negate any further commander snipes.
Yeah, they need to be very careful making sure they control the air, or they will get sniped very easily. They are completely going for the fighters at the moment. We can see actually all non-stop bombers going on from Voices of War, particularly from the southern player, and that's going to help them with snipes, but of course they're going to be very, very vulnerable to losing all of them for nothing against these fighters.
Yeah, I mean, the key to winning this game, I think, is going to be catching commanders out in the open and bypassing attacking forces, because that's what we've sort of been seeing here, sort of flanking and cutting off troop movements and everything. But as we move up into the T2 vehicles on the southern PAG spawn there, getting out the advanced energy, they could even start to mix in some shellers, because as we have seen in the past, they have had trouble getting past that wall in on the trench, and shellers will be able to break that.
These radars are still giving some excellent intel to Team PAG, really working out for them. Voices of War haven't managed to get rid of them yet. And taking a little look, we do see a lot of fighters being built from the northern orange base, but still bombers at the south, and the fighters are just going to fly by and destroy all of those bombers that were sitting there. So unfortunately a little bit of a loss there for Voices of War, and the southern player in a lot of trouble as a huge amount of tanks goes towards that southern Voices of War player.
Yeah, and there really isn't anything to defend against this. They need to really put up a teleporter perhaps. Although, having a look in the other bases, there really aren't all that many ground forces at all for Voices of War. I think they have focused a little bit too much on their air production, and having their economy stalling for the past few minutes, only just beginning to get back on its feet, I think has really been a little bit of a thorn in their side here, as now we can see the vastly superior unit count for PAG. 1,000 almost, well, 900 plays 550, so that's a real disparity there.
However, we see another commander towards the north side for Team PAG is actually down to 40% now. He got hit by some docks and some bombers, and already down to 40%. So you've got to be very, very careful. Once you only have 2 commanders left, you're very vulnerable to getting sniped.
You are indeed. Looks like...
But here we go, the southern player for Voice of War is in trouble as these tanks come rolling in, and they have fighters there to protect. The bombers, however, are there trying to defend, but really, as long as you're okay with these fighters, you're going to be able to stop those bombers doing too much damage. Those tanks now coming into range, starting to fire on the factories and on the power gens, and the commander here is going to be at a bit of risk, getting up the double laser turrets as well, which are going to be good against the tanks, and those fighters are hovering right above those factories, ready to defend against those bombers, taking a little bit of flak from that commander.
Yeah, indeed. However, looking at the northern bit again there, a few aircraft moving out from Voices of War, just getting a little bit of a scout, but they've seem to have transitioned from bombers to almost entirely interceptors, so it looks as though they're perhaps abandoning their bomber snipe approach. Whether I agree with this or not is remains to be seen, though, because there's such a large force of tanks and vehicles all over the place that Voices of War really need those bombers to support, because they do not have the ground unit count to really do anything about it.
For a lot of turrets for the southern Voices of War player trying to defend, Voice of War still beginning to push back a little bit, moving their units in, trying to do a little bit of damage, but PAG still in a good position, very even on the medal front still. In fact, Voice of War is probably looking like they're going to overtake, and they are overtaking now, doing a good job of that. We also see the T2 in the mix now, T2 bots at the northern bases for Voices of War, and T2 mechs are going up. That's why their eco is increasing so quickly right now.
Oh wow, that'll be a big advantage for them. It won't be too long before the southern PAG player catches up, though, as they're getting lots and lots of advanced vehicle factories out now, mixing in levelers and shellers into the mix, as well as getting a lot of storage and advanced energy there. So once those advanced vehicles really start to get onto the front lines, I think Voices of War are really going to have a hard time.
We just see Voices of War sending a couple of bombers at that commander that's already a little bit low. And as you say, getting all these T2 units out is going to change the game now, because the T2 units really can do a lot of damage to the T1 and make it very unfavourable to get in confrontations with them.
Yeah, another flyby there. Lots of interceptors realising, we don't actually have too many bombers, and we're just losing units over this commander, who's probably panicking a little bit, thinking, where are the bombers? Because he is on his low health, of course. He is getting healed by a combat fabber, though. He's back up to around 50%, so doing a little bit of good work there from the combat fabber.
Yeah, definitely worth it at this stage in the game. They have so much eco, it's not much of a cost for them, even though the commander takes 25k to repair himself fully. Using a combat fabber, he's not going to waste any energy there, and going to be able to repair the commander and keep him a little bit safer from those snipes coming in.
Yeah, every little helps, and now we see the slammers moving onto the front lines here from the eastern push, northeastern spawn from Voices of War, moving a large force in actually, and there's not too many ground units to defend against this in relation, though they are vehicles, so they will be able to take a little bit more pain, but the slammers there I think will even the odds a little bit.
Yeah, they do have those slammers in the mix. The southern Voices of War player in trouble. Actually, a whole load of bombers coming into the commander, and they're going to lose all of them against all the turrets there. But down come all those bombs, and the commander falling easily below 50%. Another little run come in with more bombs, and this could be the end of this Voices of War commander, as those bombers keep laying down some annihilation on that commander, falling to 25%. He is in a little bit of trouble. Even with all those anti-air, it's not enough to get rid of them before they've dropped their bombs and done a whole load of damage. And all those tanks are just going to move in on that commander. I'm not sure whether he's going to survive much longer. Couple of bombers also coming in as well.
Meanwhile, on the northern spawn, the PAG commander as well coming down to 13% of his health. So we got a double, well, effectively a commander trade effectively going on here. Oh wow, the PAG's commander is escaping with 9%.
Yeah, both commanders on very, very low, but that PAG commander is going to go down as those units focus in on them, and the Voice of War commander also
simultaneous.
goes down. So PAG only has 2 commanders remaining, Voice of War still has 3, so they're actually in a decent position in terms of commanders left. They have completely lost that southern base, however. So PAG has a lot of ground now. They almost completely control the southern hemisphere, which is very good for them in terms of ground control.
Yeah, definitely is. Now, of course, the next priority for Voices of War is going to have to be scouting around to find out where the commanders are. Unfortunately for them, the commanders are in the thick of the southern bases there. That's going to be a real challenge for them to get in. Although there is one building air factories who's reasonably exposed, actually, because there's not a whole lot of anti-air around.
Oh yeah, he's very exposed building these air factories. Definitely this is a stage of the game where you need to get your commanders protected, because that's the way you're going to lose this game. Nice to see as well, we actually see a Hawkins has been built by the Voice of War players on the north side. That could be great against large groups of units, but as all these units come in very close, I think that Hawkins is going to go down. Turret's trying to put in work, but I'm not sure whether it's enough at this stage as all those units start moving through.
Yeah,
and,
that Hawkins is gone.
Hawkins is almost going to go down. Bombers coming in to support, but I think it's a little bit too little now. And not many units to defend here. If they keep putting on the pressure, PAG can start breaking through, and there's two commanders there waiting, and all of that T2 eco as well, so it's very important they defend there. And now PAG is moving in on multiple fronts, as we see docks moving in over these bridges, and another group of tanks also moving in from the south side, and really putting the pressure on Voice of War right now. And they really have to do something about this soon before they start losing too much ground.
Yeah, and there's a teleporter, interestingly, from PAG put up in the middle of the in between the remaining commanders of Voices of War on the northern hemisphere there, which could send units through and take out a lot of metal production. In fact, there's two teleporters going up. One has been alerted to, so Voices of War will be on the lookout for that. If we look from their perspective, they can see a radar blip from the other one that has now been activated. They don't actually know that it's a teleporter, they just see the blip. They need to go and scout that.
If we look at them now, they're going to see a whole load of units appearing out of that one blip, and I think they're going to realise that things are bad. That's a great move from Team PAG there, using those teleporters to get rid of that transition time, walking all the way up there, particularly with tanks, which are obviously going to be very, very slow, and really going to put the pressure on for multiple attacks now, and doing a great job of not letting Val have any breathing room at this stage. And we're still very even on the medal front, still everything to play for. Having a look at the army tab, 106 factories for PAG, 95 for Voices of War, so still very close, but 1,200 mobile units to 540. Big unit advantage at the moment in terms of PAG.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at that force that's come through the teleporter. There's no anti-air in there, so a few bombers could go and take out those shellers. However, there's a huge swarm of interceptors just having a ball over there, just to the east of where that teleporter is. So they'll be on call on a minute's notice.
Yeah, I think at this stage, PAG can just keep investing in their fighters, control the air game, and not bother about the anti-air too much. They are mixing in some of their forces, but definitely not in all of them around. Bombers moving in from Voice of War, trying to defend against these raiding units coming in, but at the moment just bad location and just getting picked off without doing any damage there. Voice of War looking like they're in a little bit of trouble.
They are going for a nuke though in the middle of their base. They haven't decided to focus down on it, probably because they're struggling a little bit for power. And as they've got so many attacks coming on from so many different fronts, they're really going to have to prioritise which ones they go for. A large bomber assault coming in on this one just to the southwest of their main base there, dispersing quite a few units, but there's a lot of interceptors there. A few moving in from PAG. They are going to get eaten up though.
But there's fighters there to protect them. I think they'll be okay. Trying to get rid of those teleporters and stem the flow of units coming in. But really, they're in a bit of trouble. I think this is a sort of time where they need to start getting into snipe territory, because they don't have enough units on the field, and they're not going to be able to get out enough to stop here. So I think they need to start thinking about snipes. There are two commanders left. It is entirely possible.
You say snipes territory. Just to the south of where that large air force of Vow is, there is that really exposed commander there that just a couple of bombing runs from that air force to the north and he'll be toast. But the interceptors there are beginning to converge from PAG on the air force of Vow, so they really need to get their act together. Here come the multiple waves of air forces here. I don't think the bumblebees are going to survive that as they go headlong into the interceptors, running away for their lives. But that air force is just getting absolutely obliterated by superior interceptor numbers.
Voice of War forced to retreat there, and PAG just dominating the air, and I think that's exactly what they should be doing. And those units that went through the teleporter are now beginning to make progress on coming up against these air factories. These shellers are at the back, and the tanks are leading the way right now. In come those bombers trying to get rid of these shellers at the back, because they do have the higher damage at the moment, and fighters coming in, just going to absolutely obliterate almost all of the air forces from both sides, but I think PAG just has so many fighters still left over, they're not in any trouble in terms of air game.
Shellers do go down though, so the majority of that attack, if Val can scramble some ground reinforcements, will be stemmed, but that's a huge number of vehicle factories right on the edge there. Although factory count now beginning to part itself, although at this many factories it's, you know, it's sort of negligible, that sort of difference, 108 to 100 there. But any assistance in the difference there is valuable.
Metal is very different now, leading 2,000 to 1,200 in favour of PAG. They have a big advantage, and Voice of War actually stalling their metal a teensy bit, so they're going to fall behind in that front. They've lost a lot of their mechs from all this raiding coming in from PAG, and now a bit of a pincer movement coming in on one of these bases. Not enough units really to defend from Voices of War, so they're definitely in trouble there. Currently their main base is large enough to hold on for the moment. They've got enough units sitting there, but this other base, I think PAG, if they can concentrate on taking down this base, then Voices of War are going to have one remaining base left, and they're going to be in too much trouble to try and come back. So getting rid of this one base, I think, will give them a nice advantage.
Yeah, definitely will, and PAG definitely, zooming out there, you can see map control is just horrendous from them. And of course, once they do get that map control and get all that metal, they can just keep out pumping the production, and they're still on 100% efficiency. And unfortunately, that commander there from Vow and that base that has been slightly surrounded there and cut off on its own is pretty much exposed now, because the ground defences have pretty much dissipated, and it's looking a bit grim for Vow, it really is.
Yeah, the problem is I don't think they have too many snipes really coming out, because I think PAG really have not built many bombers at all. They've pretty much just non-stop built fighters, and they haven't lost any big confrontations flying over anti-air or anything similar, so they just still have the numbers in terms of fighters, and it's going to be very difficult for Voice of War to get back in the air game enough to pull off a snipe. Currently doing a little flyby for some scouting by PAG, and they actually scout over this nuke. Commander is assisting that nuke, and it's already at 35%, so still a good ways away from helping with a snipe. And any air attacks attempted by Voice of War here just keep getting nullified. PAG doing a very good job of making sure their fighters are in the right place at the right time and being able to defend. Yeah,
I mean, one of the other problems that Voices of War have now is that PAG's base is so vast that scouting it fully and quickly to find the commanders is going to be a real challenge for them. But again, we do still see that the commanders are pretty much exposed from PAG there on the southwest. There's that commander right out in the middle of nowhere building PGens.
Yeah, that is a bit crazy at this stage to be not protecting your commanders, because really the only way they're going to lose here is from a snipe. So they should just be building anti-air all around their commanders, making sure there's no way this sneaky little snipe can get them. So they're kind of risking it a little bit here.
Yeah, they are building anti-nukes though, with the commander who's sort of in the middle of his base. But even then, you know, the South Pole is no defence territory, and a whole bunch of bombers can just fly by over the South Pole and hit that commander right where it hurts.
Bandlebear in chat making a good point. Where is the orbital? Neither team has gone for orbital yet, and I definitely think orbital would have helped either team get a little bit of advantage and put a little bit of pressure on PAG. Probably wouldn't. I don't think necessarily either team has orbital radar either, so they wouldn't necessarily see it coming. We do see orbital radar actually from Voice of War. I'm not sure if PAG have built one somewhere. Doesn't look like it, but they do have a big sprawling base to try and find it.
They do not, from what I can see, have a deep space radar. But having said that, they have now got those levelers on the front lines, tearing through what remains of Voices of War's cut-off base there. I'm not sure if their commander managed to escape in time. Having a look back at the other base, I do see 3 commanders, so he did manage to escape, desperately getting up PGens, but they really need to shift their production to where it's really going to count here to be able to get those commander snipes, because they really cannot do anything against the ground force of PAG because it's just so vast.
Yeah, they've been stuck at 1200 metal, not increasing at all, but PAG now at 2800. They just keep increasing and keep putting more out. And now leading 120 to 80 factories, so big advantage on all fronts now, and they're just going to push in and try and get the win. Good work from Voice of War, however. They're trying to counter-attack, sending a group of tanks towards the south. You've got to be aggressive, you can't be constantly defensive, or you're never going to win, you're just going to lose by attrition. So at least they're trying it, but I think PAG has got this game pretty much on lock as they begin to push in through the main lines and in towards the middle of the base from Voices of War.
Yeah, and there's really not a whole lot to defend against this. Only a couple of T1 turrets there, and the deep space radar will go down as well. But as they start to hit the production, the factory count disparity is going to start falling, because we now see 125 factories to 71, with 1,600 mobile units to below 400 mobile units.
Yeah, they have everything now, and I think they're just going to push in, keep the pressure on, and end this game. Not sure if Voices of War really got any sort of plan here. They don't have much build power is the other thing. If we look at the army tab, they actually both have about 60 fabbers, but a lot of them they're trying to rebuild the eco now, going for the T2 mechs, just trying to build up, but I think they really need to plunge it into something that can get them the snipe. No point in building the eco up too much at this stage. They just need to get that snipe out.
Yeah, I think they've just been going far too heavy on the interceptors. I think if they'd gone for heavier bombers, then even with the number of interceptors PAG have, they would have still stood a pretty good chance of getting off the comm snipes. But now, as we see the shellers and the T2 units and all sorts coming in from both sides, it really is curtains for Voices of War. And it's only a matter of time before the GGs are called, because that nuke is not going to get launched.
Yeah, I think Kiwi makes a good point saying not enough fabbers. There really is very few fabbers, considering we're talking about thousands of metal income here, and they should be plunging in. We both see green numbers as well, so not using all of it. We do see the GGs called by Cryo, so perhaps they're going to concede the game. Typically, you should do if you're going to call the GGs, and they are going to concede and delete those commanders. So the GGs get called.
GG.
So in game one, Voices of War are defeated and PAG get their first win. Stay tuned for game two.
Shall we interview the players?
Yeah, we'll have a little interview, and we'll talk to the Voices of War guys first.
Hello, Cryo.
Hello, Cryo.
Hi.
How are you doing?
It's okay. It was better than expected. We put up a long fight, and yeah.
Definitely. It was only towards the end it looked like you were sort of losing a bit. I think you did a great job overall, and it was definitely anyone's game at some point. What do you think about spawning three separately? Do you think that helped you or hindered you ultimately?
Well, the problem is that one of our players had issues with his hardware, and he sees like one frame every 10 seconds. So yeah, it was not so wise to have three bases, because we couldn't manage all of them, because we were only three basically.
That makes it difficult.
But okay, it's not meant as an excuse. It's just
no, I understand. It always seems nice to try and split up as much as you can, but perhaps on this sort of scale, maybe it'd be a little bit better having 2 mega bases rather than 3 slightly more split up ones. You also went for a lot of air units, especially early on as well. Do you want to talk us through what you're planning with that?
Well, we had some training games, and we often used bomber snipes, and yeah, we could pull off 2 snipes here also with bombers and land force together. So next time maybe we can do 4 bomber snipes, then it's better.
It was definitely looking like you're doing a good job of getting rid of their commanders. They were actually a little bit unprotected, particularly towards the late game. It's just they had so many fighters. I don't think you could get enough bombers to keep putting off those bomber snipes.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just the whole economy that finally won them the game.
Orbital as well. You didn't go for any orbital. Was there any? Did you forget it or?
No, it didn't seem useful at any moment in the game.
Okay. Great. If you want to set up the next game, we will. We'll speak to Klops from PAG.
Okay.
Hello there, Klops. How you doing?
Fine. A little stressed, but okay.
You performed pretty well, keeping up the pressure and pretty solid all round. Are you happy with that game?
Yeah, the game went pretty well. There's just a lot of stuff to do. So
you only went for 2 bases rather than splitting up into 3. Was that intentional, or?
Yeah, there's enough metal to expand, so it's better to be safe in the beginning, I think, than go a little crazy. So I think it worked out okay, because they had a few bases spread around, and they seemed weak on our side.
Yeah, I definitely think it worked out for you. It looked pretty safe. And as you say, there was so much metal, you don't really need to split up too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you worried at all? Because it was pretty even most of the way through that game.
No, not really. To be honest, I just there's people are kind of like trying to get the air around, move around, and everybody's moving the air in different places, and people are using select all air, and it's kind of it's a little difficult. But that's what happens when you don't play as a team too much.
I still think you did a good job, but you didn't build any orbital. Did you not think it might be useful, perhaps having some radars for your attacks?
Yeah, no, not really. You kind of know what they're going to do. So like, you have a good feeling from what units are out in the field, on the pitch or whatever you call it, the map, what their plan is. So it's. But we had an orbital radar, so if we noticed they were doing anything sneaky, we would have reacted to it then.
Yeah. So, you've managed to win on your system. Are you confident moving over to their system? It's going to be very, very different with multiple planets and multiple spawnable ones.
Yeah, I'm hopefully trying to... I hope to be okay. I think we'll be okay. I've a lot of practice with Orbital now.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that is a surprise plot.
Yeah, a couple of the 1v1 maps were Orbital, so I know how things work now, so it's not so bad.
Okay, good stuff. Anything else you want to say about that game or the next one?
No, that's fine. I think we covered everything there.
Okay, good stuff.
Job.
So we'll jump into the next game, and good luck.
Thanks, man.